is brought to you by Two Pits Barbecue, Briggs Goalkeeper Training, and Ophelia Soul Food Restaurant.
Hello, hello, hello. I am Coach O. This is the National Scouting Service Podcast Show. We have a very interesting show for you all tonight. You don't want to miss it. We're going to be talking about didn't know that was going on, but we're going to bring it right here to you to let you know what's going on so you can know what's going on in the recruiting world. And again, I am Coach O. This is the National Scouting Service Podcast Show. You can follow me on a lot of different social media platforms. You can follow me on Twitter at Coach O Brown. You can also follow National Scouting Service on Twitter at National Scouting as well. We have that going across the screen. And again, I am Coach O. You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Station Head App Radio. You will have to download the Station Head app as well as on YouTube. I'd like to give some big shout out to some of our sponsors of the show. I'd like to give a big shout out to Meek and Zeke Studios. We are going live in Meek and Zeke Studios, so big shout out to Meek and Zeke Studios. Also, Meek and Zeke got me a new audio board, so if you're hearing some different types of audio sounds and stuff like that or staticky, please bear with us. We'll have that all worked out by our next program. We'll have a live show coming this Saturday, and I'll give you the details of that as well. Also, like to give a big shout out to Cold Tees T-shirts. If you're trying to get some T-shirts made for family events, sporting events, reach out to Cold Tees T-shirts. You can follow her on all the social media platforms. You can get in contact with her at NicoleWells72 at gmail.com. Also, big shout out to Uncontested Hoops. That is by Coach Herb Washington. If you're a basketball player out there trying to get your skill set developed and your mental state of the game developed, contact Coach Herb Washington on Instagram at Uncontested Hoops. You can also find Coach Washington on Instagram under Coach Washington as well. We'd like to give a big shout out to running back Giving Back. That is by a former Kansas City Chiefs All-Pro fullback, Mr. Kimball Anders. Also, Texas Southern University running back coach. So we'd like to give a big shout out to him as well as running back Giving Back. We'd like to give a big shout out to Peace of Mind Athletics. That is by Coach Thomas Peace. You can follow Coach Peace on Twitter at Coach_Peace. You can also follow him on Instagram at Peace of Mind Athletics. We would like to give a big shout out to one of our main sponsors of this podcast show, and that is Two Pits Barbecue by Coach L. Campbell. If you're in the Katy area, please stop by Two Pits. Look them up on the Google search. Let them know that National Scouting Service sent you their way. They have outstanding customer service as well as great food. I'd like to give a big shout out to Briggs Goalkeeper Training. That is by Coach Eric Briggs. If you want to get in contact with Coach Briggs about improving your soccer skills as well as getting in shape of the training, you can contact Coach Briggs on Twitter at Eric D. Briggs. You can also find him on Instagram at Eric Briggs 8. We'd like to also give a big shout out to Ophelia Soul Food Restaurant, which is located in Galveston, Texas. If you're ever in Galveston, also Google search Ophelia, stop by, let the staff and the owner know that National Scouting Service sent you their way. You wouldn't be surprised with the outstanding customer service they have as well as the food. We also like to give a big shout out to Dave's Catering. If you're trying to get your events catered and you don't want to have to do all the work, their slogan is, let us do all the work. You can contact Dave's Catering at 832-392-3896. Again, I am Coach O. This is the National Scouting Service Podcast Show. And before we get started, I'm going to let you know about some upcoming shows that we'll be having on our podcast show. First, we'll be having Mr. Sincere Thompson, January the 4th. He's a football player, and that podcast interview will be at 10 a.m. Central Standard Time right here on Station Head App Radio, as well as on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. We'll also be having Cavius Leonard, January the 5th at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. He's also a football player. You don't want to miss this podcast interview. He'll be a special guest on our show as well. Then, followed by those two interviews, we will have a basketball guest, Mr. Jamal Christine II, on January the 11th. That will be at 10 a.m. Central Standard Time. Don't want to miss that. Then we'll be followed on January the 12th with Talia Strode, and that broadcast will be at 6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time and 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. January the 18th, we'll have a football player, Mr. Richard Henshaw. That program will be at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time and 9 a.m. Central Standard Time. We will also have outstanding track and field athlete, Miss Jada Gibson, on January the 25th at 10 a.m. Central Standard Time. So you don't want to miss that. These broadcasts can be found on Instagram, Twitter, as well as on TikTok. You don't want to miss these shows. These are some shows that we'll have coming up on our show in the month of January. And as you can see, we already have a schedule full, and the schedule is continuing to come out. I'd like to give a big shout out and a happy New Year's to all the athletes out there, to all the athletes' parents, especially to those who was on our show in 2024. You all made this show an outstanding show. Without you all, we wouldn't be where we're at right now to this day. So we really do appreciate y'all. This is our third season. We already have about 90 to 95 shows out. Going to break the 100 mark this year. Hopefully, we'll be in the 200 mark by the end of the year. But we'd like to say big shout out to all the guests that was on our show, that appeared on our show. We really do appreciate you all. And before we move on to the show, we'd like to send our prayers and our condolences to all the people that lost their lives in New Orleans, Louisiana. And for those who are injured, we hope you have a speedy recovery, and our prayers go out to you all as well. Now, as we get back to the show, tonight we're going to talk about recruiting. And the reason why I wanted to bring this up, I was sitting in a shop amongst a lot of fellas, and we was talking sports, athletics, and the big things out now is NIL deals, which I talked about briefly about 2 weeks ago here in Texas. Now they passing a House bill where athletes can transfer for athletic purposes, but they only can do it one time. And I'm thinking what the UIL in Texas and the high school sports are doing now is trying to keep up with the collegiate sports with NIL deals and stuff like that. So this is going to be a very interesting show. We're going to talk about recruiting. A lot of people probably don't know the process of a recruiting. They just know that a kid is getting recruited and they're getting a scholarship or a partial scholarship or not getting a scholarship at all. So we're going to dive into it on this show. And the first thing we're going to jump off with, and that is House Bill 619. Now, that's a House bill that has came up here in Texas. They're going to talk about it in office when it comes to the table. But for those who don't know, basically, this bill is for student athletes can now transfer for athletic purposes, where in the state of Texas, at first, they wasn't able to do that, but now they can. And coaches, believe me, we're going to start recruiting. I don't know if that's an illegal part of doing this House bill, but I know coaches are going to start recruiting. They're going to start reaching out to student athletes, and athletes going to start negotiating and reaching out to some of their best friends, trying to build these super teams so they can get a state championship or go deep in the playoffs. Maybe because the schools that they was at, they probably wasn't going to the playoffs. So now they're trying to get an opportunity to go to the playoffs. But this bill basically states House Bill 619 allows Texas students aged under 19 and eligible for grades 9 through 12 to transfer once to another school district for athletic participation purposes. Now, again, in the state of Texas, student athletes weren't able to do this at first, but now they are going to be allowed to do this. The transfer requires a written approval from the receiving district and the student's parents. The transfer remains valid until the student graduates or withdraws. It prohibits discrimination based on sex, race, or disability. Additionally, the UIL cannot penalize students or districts for such transfers. Implementation begins with the 2025-2026 school year. Now, I know they voting on this, but the sounds of it that is being posted, like I guess they can already do this. So that's going to be a big thing coming in 2025, 2026 in the state of Texas, where student athletes at first wasn't allowed to transfer for athletic purposes. And now you're going to have students doing this. I know a lot of students going to be excited about this. Some coaches going to be excited about this, and there's going to be some coaches in some schools that's not going to be excited about this because they're going to have some of their top athletes jumping ship now, going to more competitive schools or schools that's known to get into the playoffs, going into deep into the playoffs, and having a chance of winning a state championship. So that's what's going on with that. Another thing that came in breaking news is that the NCAA has granted waivers given to non-NCAA athletes an extra year of eligibility in 2025 if they would have exhausted their eligibility in 2024. Now, this is good for JUCO players. This is good for NCAA players because now they getting an extra year. But what's not being understood by a lot of high school parents and high school athletes, the reason why a lot of these schools are not giving out a lot of scholarships and holding on to these scholarships because these players are now jumping into the NCAA portal. So if you're a student athlete out there, and I'm gonna get into this later on, and you was looking at these Division I schools, and you're not a 3-star, 4-star, 5-star athlete, chances are these schools going to be asking you to walk on as a preferred walk on. We're going to get into that. So I would be looking at these Division II, these NAIA schools, and then if you get your numbers up on that level, yeah, then you can start transferring to these big schools. But right now, they going after these grown men that already got some time under their belt, already familiar with the game. So when they transfer in, they can get right to it. It ain't gonna be a lot of teaching for them on that level. So that's some of the things that's going on. Waivers for the non-NCAA athletes as members of the schools. Non-NCAA athletes could fall into several categories. Athletes in other collegiate associations, competing in organizations like the NAIA, that's the National Association of Intercollegiate Athletics, or NJCAA, which is the National Junior College Athletic Association. And these organizations. Now, the reason why they put it like that, because these organizations are not in alliance with the NCAA. So they can go play 2 or 3 years in one of these schools, come back to the NCAA and still have a 4 years of eligibility. And that's why a lot of you high school athletes have to understand if you was getting recruited highly and now these schools backed off, now they could start going after these guys because then now they know they can keep them for another 4 years. Waivers for non-NCAA athletes. Number 2, club or intramural athletes participating in sports at a collegiate level, but in non-varsity program, club sports or intramural teams. Basically, they saying if you're not playing at a university, playing on that team, hey, you can come on to us. Also, professional or independent athletes competing in professional leagues, independent sports organizations, or semi-professional levels outside of collegiate athletics. Again, student athletes in high school, these guys are making it harder and harder for you to obtain these 4-year scholarships that you used to be able to obtain because now they can get these kids out of the portal. Now they can go get them out of NAIA schools, out of JUCO schools. Also engaged in sports at pre-college level or through non-collegiate leagues and competition. Waiver rule number 5, international athletes competing in sports, systems in other countries that are non-affiliated with the NCAA. Again, they're allowing these kids to come from the NAIA. They're allowing these kids to come from JUCOs. They're giving them scholarships. That's why they're going into the portal. If you're a student athlete out there and some of these schools have been saying, hey, we want you to be a preferred walk-on or we want to give you a partial scholarship, this is why. These terms typically distinguish athletes who are not bound by requirements or scholarship structures. Meaning, some of these students that are in at NAIA schools or JUCO are not on scholarships, or they're on scholarships for a certain amount of time. It can be for first 1 semester, 2 semesters, 3 semesters, or whatever the case may be, until they complete the obligation towards that scholarship. So these are some of the things that are going on. So that's why we're giving you all the breakdown right now about these scholarships. and then we're going to get into what schools have, the prices that they have for these scholarships, and I'm gonna get into the scholarship breakdown right now. So for some of you all that don't know, and I had that on the screen, and we're gonna go through this. Hold on, give me a second. And these are the scholarship breakdown. In Division One, which is FBS schools, these are football bowl subdivision. FBS is the classification for the Division One athletic programs with the highest profile football competition in athletics, basically in the world. D1 is the top echelon of all sports. Then you have Division Two, which used to be Division 1, 2A, now it's just Division Two. Then you have Division Three. Nothing against the Division Threes, but I'm gonna get into that shortly too. And then you have the NAIA schools. In my opinion, this is just Coach O opinion. If it was me and I was a student athlete, and I know these Division Ones going into the portal, I would be one of the kids that are either accept a Division Two or a NAIA school. That's just my opinion. But you know, kids, you need to sit with your parents. You need to go in the route or the direction that you see suit fit for you. Now, in the Division One school, you need to listen. There's over 129 teams. Total athletes, 15,000. The team sizes ranges from anywhere from 125 athletes. Schools per team, scholarships per team, 85. So in Division One, they only have 85 scholarships. So you don't think that some of these Division One schools, reasoning being, that's why they going into the portal. That's why they telling some of you high school student athletes, if you're not a 4-star or 5-star, that hey, we only can give you a partial scholarship or a preferred walk-on. Reason why they're using that preferred walk-on tag, because they may not be able to get this kid that they want out of the portal. So now you basically the second, third, or the last resort, and then maybe they'll offer you that other portion of that scholarship. That's just my opinion. I'm not saying it's happening like that, but you got to think about it. Division Two. That's in the Division One schools, football championship subdivision. No, this is Division One FCS. I'm sorry. This is schools football championship subdivision is the classification of football competition for Division One institutions that choose to compete at a level that requires less financial commitment than the FBS classification. Now, they accepting less commitment, but they doing the same thing. They're going into the portals. They're trying to get some kids that are already established, already know what it takes. They know they're hungry. They're trying to go to the next level to better themselves. They're not going to come in playing. So do you think they're going to go into the portal and not get a kid when they got to get a high school kid, where they got to groom and develop when these players are already developed? Again, that's just Coach O's opinion. Not saying that they're doing this, but they're going into these portals for a reason, people. They're going in the portals for a reason. Now, with these divisions, they got less requirements. So they don't have the same requirements as the bigger the bigger Division One. You know, they have less requirements. So their requirements not the same as the FBS. They have less requirements. Now, financial commitment than the FBS classification. Again, teams, they have 125. Total athletes, a little bit less than the FBS, they have 13,000. Team size, 125, still the same, but they only get 63 scholarships. Again, 63 scholarships. Should I give it to a high school athlete, or can I give it to a kid that's already groomed, already established, already got his head on straight per se, right out of the portal? So you have to think about these things. And I'm gonna say it again. This is just Coach O opinion. Division Two or NAIA for me. That's just the only way I'm going. Unless it is a JUCO, I'm only staying one semester or during the season, and then I'm getting pulled up out of there, going to a bigger school on a scholarship. That's just me. Now we're gonna get into the Division Two. The Division Two schools tend to be smaller public universities and many private institutions that they have with these Division Two. A large minority of the Division Two institutions, it's 91 schools, 30%, have fewer than 2,499 students. Less students, it's going to be less scholarships. but you have a greater chance of going there playing, getting your film up, and then transferring, showing that, hey, I can play on this level, even though it's Division II. I can play on one of these Division 1 level. Only 18 institutions have more than 15,000 undergraduates, and only 5 have more than 25,000. How many teams do they have? 170, total of 18,000 student athletes. Team sizes are 120, scholarships, as I said before, 36. So again, a lot of these kids coming out of the portal not going to the NAIA. So the NIA, so the Division 2, I'm sorry, so the Division 2 gonna have more scholarships to offer. Not than the Division 1. No, I'm not saying that, but they got 36 scholarships. So I'm pretty sure with these 36 scholarships, they know they're not going to get the 5-star athlete. They know they're not going to get the 4-star athlete. It's a high probability not going to get the 3-star athlete. So if you're an all district player, all state, but you probably have some stars, you can go to these Division 2s and get you a scholarship. School still paid for it. And I'm a firm believer. It don't matter where you go or where you play, they're going to find you. But the thing is, if you're an athlete and you're not a high star player, chances are you're not going to one of these big Division 1 schools because they pulling them out of the portal because of the amount of scholarships that they have. Now with the Division 3, and I'm not saying this to disrespect the Division 3, because there's been some great athletes to come out of Division 3, been some great athletes to go into the pros and be outstanding athletes, have more accolades than the ones who came from Division 1 school. But in the Division 3 is the lowest level of collegiate athletics. I don't mean that they got the lowest level of athletes that can perform on a high level. This is a great choice for athletes who still want to play at a high level college and play sports and have a well-rounded collegiate experience. And even though they're going to have a well-rounded collegiate experience, you can still be playing to get to the next level. Teams in Division 3, 248. Total amount of athletes, it's going to be more than the Division 1, 25,000, because they getting an opportunity to play where these Division 1s and Division 2s probably turning them away. Team size is 105. Scholarships, none. No scholarship. So if you do have the financial means to go to a Division 3 and pay for your schooling, then so be it. You're still going to get an opportunity to play. You're still going to get an opportunity to probably open some eyes. You're going to still get an opportunity to maybe go to the next level and play on the higher level. Now, NSS scholarship breakdown that I like to talk to you all about. NAIA schools. NAIA schools are colleges and universities that are part of the National Association of Intercollegiate Athletics. They offer athletic programs and scholarships for student athletes focusing on well-rounded educational experiences. They about education first. So if you got an outstanding GPA, you ranked higher in your class, most likely you can go to one of these schools and you can get an academic scholarship and it'll pay for your school. Some of these schools do have partial scholarships. Some of them do have partial athletic scholarships. But you can go to this school. Let's just say you're on an athletic scholarship. On an academic scholarship, and you get that athletic scholarship. That money goes into your pocket. So you can look at it that way as well. How many NAIA scholarship schools are there? There are 237 NAIA schools out there that's probably looking for a outstanding student athlete like yourself. So, hey, don't look down on these NAIA schools. Look them up. I went to one. Big shout out to Mid America Nazarene College. Big shout out to Ottawa University. Went to both of them. Competed at a high level. Went to a bowl at one. Got a conference ring and a bowl ring. Went coach conference champs at Ottawa University. Have a ring from there. So you can still go to these different schools and still get a ring, still play at a high level, and somebody will look at you and give you an opportunity. We're still on the scholarship breakdown. Teams 100, total athletes 10K, team size 105, scholarships 24. So it depends on what NAIA school that you go to. Now, how do they categorize scholarships in the NCAA? I had to do a lot of research on this, because I didn't know the ins and out of it, knew kind of a little bit of it. But here we go. I did my research. You can do too. This is public record. It's on the internet. You can research it and you can have it too. My job is to let the high school student athletes know that there are other schools out there besides your dream school. Because your dream school may not be the school that you may be able to get into. So sometimes you're going to have to have a little wiggle room, and you're going to have to work on your recruiting process on your own. Don't depend on the coaches. I'm a coach, but I'm just saying you can't always depend on us. You got to do your research, you got to do your homework, and then you got to make yourself marketable when it comes to this recruiting, knowing what's out there, knowing what's available to you, and knowing what's not available. Because these NIL deals and this portals that's out there is giving a lot of limits on these schools and these student athletes to be able to get into these schools. Now we into how scholarships are categorized in the NCAA. The NCAA scholarships are categorized in two main types. I'm sorry. Athletic scholarships and academic or merit-based scholarships. Let me read that to you again. NCAA scholarships are categorized into two main types: athletic scholarships, academic or merit-based scholarships. Within these categories, the types and structures of scholarships can vary depending on the division, the sport, the individual school policies, and trust me, the athlete. Here's an overview. Number one, athletic scholarships awarded to student athletes based on athletic ability. If you can play, because they have seen you play, you have good film to draw them to see you play, they're going to recruit you. But it's going to be some things that goes in the recruiting. It's going to be a lot of things that you're going to have to scratch off their list for them to end up giving you this full scholarship. Because again, they can go right into the portal. These scholarships are based on on the student athlete's athletic ability and potential contribution on the collegiate sports program. If you can contribute to their program, you can contribute to them coaches continue to have a job, continue to have them alums sending money into the program, continue to alumni and sponsors sending millions of dollars so they can give out NIL deals to land the top tier athlete either coming out of college or coming out of these portals. Full scholarships, they cover tuition, fees, whatever the fees may be, which can be your room board, and sometimes other costs like books and supplies. So if you're on a full scholarship, you're really taken care of. You're going to be wearing the nice warm-ups, clothes, your room and board is taken care of, maybe your apartment, whatever money you have in your pocket. That's when a lot of them start saying they got the bag and they want to go get the drip when they should be investing that money and stuff like that. That's just my opinion. If they're getting these NIL deals, you better believe you got to pay taxes on them. They're not telling you that, but I'm pretty sure they are. But that's what you get with a full scholarship. The most commonly offered in head count sports, excuse me, specific sports where all scholarships must be full. NCAA Division One, that's in men's football, FBS, and basketball, women's basketball, volleyball, as well as men's volleyball, tennis, as well as men's tennis, and gymnastics, as well as men's gymnastics as well. Now, what a lot of people don't understand is the partial scholarships. And I'm going to give you the breakdown on the partial scholarships. Partial scholarships only cover a portion of your tuition, fees, room and board, or other expenses. So when you're on a partial scholarship, that is fine. Hopefully that you're on a academic scholarship or you received a lot of academic money when you was in high school. But it's just because they say they're giving you a scholarship, you always want to know, is it a full scholarship or a partial scholarship, which only covers a portion of your tuition, your fees, room and board, or other expenses. Common and equivalent to sports, where the programs have a set amount of scholarships money to divide amongst athletes. If you're on a partial scholarship, this is the reason why. Because they're giving another partial of money to another student athlete. as well as to another student athlete, as well as to another student athlete. And that's why they're not giving you the full amount of a full scholarship. Now, examples with this is it happens in baseball, track and field, soccer, golf, and swimming. Now, they don't have football listed, but it also happens in football as well. Coaches often split these funds among multiple athletes, which I just told you. The walk on programs. Now, I'm a little biased about the walk on programs because if it don't work out for you, then you end up leaving the school, trying to go to another school. Now you go jumping from back and forth to school and you probably don't land a home. Or you stop playing and your passion for the sport is not full of fire no more. So now they just took that drive away from you and you may walk away from the sport when it's another school out there that can use you as a student athlete. Walk on programs. Athletes join the team without receiving a scholarship. So when they tell you they want you to be a walk on, they asking you to be a walk on because they don't have a scholarship for you. Now I'm not saying they're not going to give you a scholarship later along or down the line, but they're not giving you a scholarship right now. Initially, but many earn one later based on performance and availability. Now, performance is good, so they're going to give you some money. But the availability, what if you get hurt? What if you get sick? What if something happened out of your control involving family and you have to go back home and have to be gone for a while? You think they're going to look at you as a full-time scholarship player? Well, we ain't give him no money anyway. We ain't missing out on anything. We ain't give him or her money anyway. So those are things you gotta think about. Number two, academics and merit-based scholarships. Oh, and before I get into that, then you have the preferred walk-on. Meaning these schools or these coaches, they prefer to have you, but at that moment in time, they can't give you no money. They prefer not to give you no money at that time. Same thing. What if you get hurt? What if you have to go home? What if after the year, then they get another guy in your position that's just as good as you and give him a scholarship? Weigh your options. You can negotiate, people. There's over 10,000 schools out there that you don't even know about that have athletic football programs, any program. And just like you don't know about them, they don't know about you. Do your research. Find a school. I did. Didn't know anything about Mid America Nazarene University. Didn't know anything about Ottawa University. University, just an NAIA school. And we competed. Number two, academic and merit-based scholarships. These scholarships are available to student athletes who excel academically. Academically. That's why you hear me say student athletes, you are a student first. I preach these to my student athletes all the time. You get your books, you excel, you can get a scholarship for that as well. Get a full-time scholarship, that academic scholarship goes in your bank account. School paid for it. These scholarships are available to student athletes who excel academically or demonstrate exceptional talent outside of athletics. You can be a scholar and still be an outstanding and exceptional athlete. You can still be a scholar and still be an exceptional, talented student athlete outside of athletics. Combination scholarships, I found this to be interesting. I didn't even know they had these. Like I said, I had to do my research because when we was talking about the men, when we was fellowshipping, and they brought this up because they say a lot of people don't know. One of my good friends is a head official, a head coach, and he didn't know. Have another friend that's an official, football and basketball. He didn't know. Had my brother over last night. His son going through the recruiting process. We helping him in with his recruiting. He didn't even know about this, and he was like, "Hey, man." Like they said, you need to get on air and talk about this. Combination scholarships. Students may receive both athletic and academic aid if they meet the qualifications for both. Now, these qualifications for both really go academically because if you meet the qualifications academically, you're going to get an academic scholarship. Now, athletically, yeah, you're going to meet the qualifications because if they're giving you a full scholarship, you met them athletically as well as academically because you have to have your grades, you have to have the GPA, you have to pass the SAT or the ACT, you have to be in the top portion of your class to get it academically. So you're going to pass the qualifications for them. But what if you're only getting a partial scholarship? I would think that I hope you push yourself academically so you'll have that academic scholarship that you can fall back on. How scholarships are categorized in the NCAA is the title. Institutionals or state scholarships. Many colleges and states offer merit-based aid for students with high GPA. I just said it. Test scores, just said it. SAT, ACT, or other achievements. And these other achievements can come from you may win a scholarship for being left-handed, being tall, being short. I'm a short guy. You know, you can get scholarships for essays, applying for different fraternities or sorority scholarships. There's scholarships out there, but you have to do your research. Just don't depend on the athletic scholarship. If there's scholarships out there that's available, apply for them. You never know, you might get them. And that's more and extra money in your pocket. Number 3, division specific guidelines. Division 1, we back at the Division 1. They always at the top. Offers both head count and equivalency scholarships depending on the sport. So now it got to depend on the sport. Athletic scholarships are renewable annually, but can also be multi-year agreements. I'm seeing that this happening a lot in softball, where they're giving you a scholarship semester or year to year. Meaning, if you're not working your tail off in the classroom, they taking your scholarship or they taking partial of it. If you're not coming to the weight room like they asking you to, they taking partial of your scholarship or they taking all of it. If you're not performing on the field, they taking partial of your scholarship or they taking all of it. It's not like the full scholarship. It's a 4-year scholarship. It ain't nothing they can do unless you quit or you leave. But these are based on year to year or semester to semester. So if they saying that they're giving you these athletic scholarships that are renewable annually, you need to start asking questions, athletes, student athletes, and parents. Division 2 only offers equivalency scholarships, meaning athletic scholarship funds are divided among athletes. So if you're meeting the athletic standards that they want you to meet, then they're going to still divide it up because they're going to give it to other student athletes coming in. So you're going to have a partial scholarship, and these funds are divided amongst athletes. Division 3, like I say, they're the lowest tier. I don't have anything against them. As I said before, you have a lot of great athletes that came out of Division 3 schools, but they are not offering any scholarships. But athletes can qualify for an academic or needed based scholarship, which I don't agree to that because who's to say if I need or I don't need that scholarship? Division 3. That's why I say Division 2, Division 3, Division 2 or NAIA. JUCO, you can go that route because, like I say, you can be there 1 semester. They may give you a scholarship for 2 semesters, but Division 2 or NAIA. Special scholarships. The NCAA postgraduate scholarships awarded to student athletes who excel academically and athletically planning to pursue graduate studies. So they'll give you a scholarship if you plan on staying, doing your graduate studies there, and then graduating with your master's. They'll give you a scholarship. Don't know how much. That's why you got to ask questions. But hey, if you're getting your books, look, academically, you're a student athlete, student first. You're getting your books, you can get that as well. Postgraduate scholarship. National Letter of Intent, NLI programs. These are binding agreements between student athletes and schools offering scholarships, ensuring commitment. Yes, a lot of athletes give a verbal commitment, then they decommit because they didn't sign no papers. Some students they'll commit by signing papers, and then they have a hard time getting out of the commitment because it's like an agreement. So you need to know where you at. I think they changing things, meaning if a coach that was recruiting you leave, you can leave and follow that coach. But you have to know what you're getting yourself into. I tell student athletes all the time, you'll hear student athletes verbally commit to 25 schools. I'm just over exaggerating, but they may commit to 3 schools. I don't think that's a good idea because it's showing me that I can't depend on you. You just jumping ship. So you have to watch that as well. Need-based aid. Now they don't have scholarship behind that, but this is a scholarship. Need-based aid. And that's why I said, who is to say that you should determine if I need the scholarship or not? Student athletes can receive need-based aid alongside athletic scholarships. So if you get an athletic scholarship, I'm thinking this may be a partial or not a full scholarship. They'll give you some more money based on your need, which I'm pretty sure you will need that when you're in school. But ladies and gentlemen, that's my take. We talked about scholarships, we talked about recruiting, and I hope this was some very good information for those who tuned in to the show. I am Coach O. You can follow me on Twitter at Coach O Brown. You can also follow me on National Scouting Service at National Scouting. Hope this was very educational for you, that you can use it for a family member, a friend, a student athlete. If you as a coach and you didn't have this information, it can be a learning tool for your recruits that are out there. And be sure to tune in this Saturday. We have a podcast show coming on. You don't want to miss it. We're gonna have a special guest come on, and Mr. Sincere Timpson, Timpson on January the 4th at 10 a.m. Central Standard Time. I know I jacked up his name. I know I'm going to have to hear from him when he comes on the show. Hope you enjoyed it. I am Coach O. This is the National Scouting Service Podcast Show. Hope to see you soon. If you have a student athlete out there that you would love for us to interview on our podcast show, hey, contact us on Instagram, Twitter, or on Facebook. We're on Facebook at National Scouting Service, as well as National Scouting Service Podcast, as well as National Scouting Service Podcast. Inbox us on one of those platforms, on either one of those platforms. We'll get in contact with you with that information. We'll contact that student athlete, and we'll try to get them on the show. Again, I am Coach O, and this is the National Scouting Service Podcast Show. Really appreciate you all tuning in. If you'd like to follow us on our podcast radio station, download the Station Head app, follow National Scouting. If you inbox us on our podcast radio station, we'll create a playlist in your name with 4 of your favorite artists, and they'll be always, you can always listen to them on Spotify, National Scouting Service, as well as any podcast, audio podcast that we do, as well as on our Station Head app radio. Again, I am Coach O, and this is the National Scouting Service Podcast Show.